So I'm going to start as if we were in the studio. So hi, I'm Tatum Durock, and this is Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show. And as you can tell, we are in front of a live studio audience, a live conference audience, the best audience ever. We're at Shine Connect, and we're doing things a little bit differently today because I have a co-host, the lovely Kynwyn Giles. And we have a wonderful panel here today. We have Rena, Matt, Adam, and Becca. Let's start with our most popular, let me say that again. I was like, oh, it's live, there's no editing. Our podcast question is always, what was happening in your life, Rena, when you were diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer last year in March. Was working full-time, incredibly stressed. Work was 24/7. Had a partner, still have a partner.
He's right here.
Yeah.
We've laid eyes on him.
Yeah. We've got a child together who was 3 at the time. It was just really, really busy. You know, housework, shopping, working, looking after our daughter, school runs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so our podcast today, and actually our conference, is really focusing on this idea of resilience. Is that a word that you like? I mean, I know for me, I saw a thing on Instagram, I don't know if any of you saw it, that was like, I'm tired of being so resilient, right? Like, it's that sometimes we think, yeah, I'm really resilient, and we kind of own it, and sometimes we're like, oh. So I was wondering, Rena, where does that word sit with you?
I do like the word, and I feel like I have felt like I've been resilient. I found that during treatment, so I did 15 months of treatment, people were, you're so strong, you're so amazing, and et cetera, and then treatment finished this year, and people stopped saying that. And I felt like, well, actually, while I was in treatment, I was just doing what people were telling me to do, go to the hospital on this day, at this time, and that's literally all I was doing. That wasn't being inspirational, that wasn't being strong, that was literally do this, and I was doing it. And at the point in which I was having to sort of navigate life and where I am now, nobody was saying that to me. Everyone was moved on to, it's finished, it's great, it's over.
And I know, Matt, you can probably relate to how it is not over at the end of treatment. Now, Matt, you've been on the podcast before, so it's so nice to have you back. Tell us about how old you were and what diagnosis you had.
Yes, so I was diagnosed at the age of 17 in 2017. Easy way to remember. And I was like a month short of finishing my IT, like level 3 BTEC. I got my place at Liverpool Uni confirmed, when all of a sudden my eyes went double, one went apart from the other, and sort of rushed to hospital for checks, and I was diagnosed eventually with 2 germ in my brain tumours, which means one was on my pituitary gland, the other on my pineal, which basically means for like well over a decade I've not been producing any of my natural hormones. So I'm on a lot of artificial replacements, will be for life. So yeah, I very much relate to what Rena said about sort of going through treatment. You just sort of sit there, take it. I didn't think much about it. It was very much just day-to-day existence, and then coming out of it and sort of you're at that point where everyone's like, oh, you're fine now, where it's like, I'm never going to be fine, but yeah, so I very much relate to that, Rena. Yeah.
And I can see so many people, like really the deep knowing nods in the audience as you were both talking just there. And Adam, things are a little bit different for you because you don't have cancer, but your partner does. And Laura's been on the podcast before. Can you tell us a bit about what was happening in your life when she was diagnosed?
Yes, so at the time, I think we were sort of just coming out of the pandemic-ish. It was around that kind of time. We were engaged, still are, but we were looking. But we were trying to plan a wedding at the time, and we were kind of going, "Yep, this is great. Let's move life forward," all that kind of thing. And that was, as I say, just after the pandemic, so it was trying to push forward. And then the cancer diagnosis, and we kind of went, "Okay, let's take that as it is." And in the end, we had to cancel the wedding and go, "Right, we're going to deal with life first, and then we'll do that." So yeah, it was kind of a roller coaster around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you had so much on your plate at that time, and you were like moving forwards in your life, and so kind of thinking about that sense of resilience, or that word. What was your initial reaction to it? Was it to kind of embrace it and be a rock, or?
Yeah, so I think for me, the way that I kind of deal with things tends to be very much methodical, follow the experts, they know what they're doing, and so you just kind of go with that. And it is what it is, and you take one step at a time. But I kind of think that for Lara, that was not particularly helpful, because she's dealing with professionals who are very much like, take it one step at a time. But when at home and she needs to be able to fall apart a bit, that's kind of impossible to do if I'm just going, well, it is what it is, we will see how it goes.
Yeah. And that was a nice
We're all going to
giggle
look at Lara
from
now.
Lara.
Hi, Lara.
I mean, that's so relatable, isn't it? And you can see why you'd be wanting to say those things, but actually that space to fall apart a bit is so vital. Thank you for sharing that. And Becca, tell us about, and you've been on the podcast before as well, so thank you for coming back. What was happening in your life? What were you up to?
I was so busy. I know everyone is. So I was a corporate lawyer at the time, so I was working long days, 18 hours-ish. Too many. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So I was diagnosed in 21, and so I went from really busy with work to really busy with stage 4 cancer. And it was an interesting change of pace, because in some ways I was actually less busy. But it was still a really different emotional journey, I think. Working compared to having cancer, I'm not saying one's more fun than the other.
There's a bit of weighing up in there. Which it might say a lot about corporate lawyering.
Yeah, I couldn't wholeheartedly recommend it.
And so what I'm thinking is, in that job, 18-hour days, that takes a certain, kind of resilience. Did you find yourself applying the same kind of approach when you got sick?
I'm going to be honest with you, I am the least resilient person I know. Thank you. I will cry at PG films.
Yeah.
Shrek is too stressful for me. Life is too much to handle, I think. So the only way that I know how to handle it is to just keep doing things. Okay. Which that works well for corporate law, and I think it works well for the early stages of cancer treatment. I think it doesn't work well for the stability side of cancer. So, you kind of fall into cancer and everything's on fire, and you feel like the world is about to end at any moment. So you're panicking all the time. And then I'm not sure which it is. Either the fire kind of burns out, or you get used to being on fire. It's one of them, maybe both. And suddenly there's nothing. And that's the bit that I found difficult. And that's when I kind of realized that actually I'm not as robust as I thought I was. I am mentally much more fragile than I ever would have thought. It's just that previously I didn't have time to think about it.
Yeah. The way you've described that is so powerful, and I know that Kynwyn, this is something that you've spoken about before in terms of that thing of whatever we used to use as a coping mechanism often doesn't work when it comes to cancer. So it might have been something that got you through 50 other things, really, really tough things. And then there's the nothing that you kind of described in there. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think absolutely, and thank you all for coming and kind of sharing your stories, because I don't think it's a question of you not being resilient. I think, Marley and Me is a sad movie, right? Like, we've all cried at that. So, I think some of these things are normal, but I think it's exactly like, we develop coping mechanisms and strategies to get us through life. And we've had them for 20 years or 30 years or 35 years. And then all of a sudden something happens. And actually they don't work in the same way, because cancer it's very much an internal thing, I think. And this was what I really struggled with, was in my life, I had, I guess a bit like you, I didn't work in corporate law, but I worked in consultancy, and it was very much go, 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 and you had to be organized. And I always felt like I could think my way out of problems, and I realized I couldn't think my way out of cancer, because everywhere you go, it's there. And that's a really difficult place to be. And I think what helped me was meeting other people who were in that situation. It couldn't take the situation away, but it does make you at least feel like you're understood and you're not going crazy, because I really thought there was something wrong with me. And I realized, actually, I think it's quite a normal human reaction to a very difficult situation. It's just that you've never been in that situation before, so you don't know what you're supposed to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. On the crying in movies things, I've actually cried at a film I wasn't watching. My roommate kicked me out, saying, "We're watching a sad movie. I do not want to hear your sobs." But I needed to come back in to get a pen. And as I walked across the room, the music made me cry. She was disgusted. And it's really interesting. Like when we're thinking about things like resilience, is kind of like, what does it look like? Is resilience being able to cry, right? Is being able to have those tender moments, or is resilience looking tough? Or so, how have you framed that, Rena? Like, how have you sort of?
When I got my diagnosis, I the next day spent the whole day in bed. Couldn't eat, couldn't talk, nothing. And then the day after was our daughter's 4th birthday, and we had got Legoland planned, so we went to Legoland. And then the day after that, I literally treated it like a job. I was like, right, is my will up to date? Is this? And my partner's like, oh my gosh, floored. You've just had this diagnosis, I don't know what's happening. And I'm like, I need to tell you about these things. And he just couldn't have that conversation. He's sitting like that. He couldn't have that conversation. But I was like, I need to get everything in order. Like, I'm starting treatment, and that's how I was. So I think the treatment bit, everyone saw, what they saw was this really strong person, appeared strong, and that's because I wasn't connecting to it in an emotional way. So I would say, in terms of resilience, is just being really present and authentic in that moment. And if that is you're upset and you're crying, that is resilience, because that's you connecting to what's happening. That's your truth in that moment. Yeah. I think sometimes resilience and this strong thing gets a bit misunderstood. Yeah. So I'd say in those early days, I wouldn't necessarily say I was resilient. I think that came a bit later on, where I was like, okay, let's take a bit of stock of where am I and what's happening for me.
Yeah, and I know that you really felt that some of the things that were said to you, like, it could be reframed, could be, some of those conversations could be better, that people could talk a bit more about cancer.
So I'm Indian, so I come from an Asian background. My partner's Jamaican man, and we have a daughter together. And one of the things we really both underestimated was we had my diagnosis to deal with, but we had the cultural things as well from both cultures, and that was like an extra thing that we had to navigate throughout this whole process. So you know, I got diagnosed, told my family, and was like, whoa, this is not how I expected this to be. And I am really passionate about raising awareness in cultural, you know, cultural perspectives about cancer, because the statistics are not very good. People of colour get diagnosed later, have got higher death rates, so I want things to change for our daughter, and I really want to raise awareness, but that is putting our culture down and saying you said this or you did this or you made me feel like that. It's really trying to understand where these embedded perspectives come from and sharing my story so that people can listen and understand. We have had all sorts of things said to us, you know, from, I don't know, COVID vaccine gave me cancer, don't do chemo, don't talk about it, don't tell anybody you have cancer. And I was like, whoa, this is, I'm not ashamed. I didn't do something to get this. I'm not going to hide it. So yeah.
You know, what you've illustrated in there is like, you know, you can see you kind of like your head down, getting through cancer like a bit like a job, and also like how that's perceived on the outside. So is resilience kind of how you feel? Is it like how you're seen? But then also the kind of at this time when you're already handling so much, you're then running into your friends, your family, your communities, fears, worries, life perspectives. That's a lot to be doing all at the same time. And that thing of saying like, I'm not ashamed, is so powerful.
I feel like I had no idea that I had cancer. I didn't have I didn't have lumps or anything like that. I didn't know anybody who's Asian that had cancer because it's not talked about, didn't know anybody young. And I feel like I want to be really vocal about that so that the next person that gets diagnosed knows that they can reach out and there is some support. Yeah.
Yeah, and Matt, I know that things really changed for you as well. Like, there was times where things were emotionally tougher and things have evolved. Can you tell us a little bit like how that happened for you?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I think when I was first diagnosed, as I said earlier, it's very much like day to day. I think at 17, I just had no idea what cancer would involve for me. I think like most people, it's like after talking to clinicians, I thought I'd be, you know, bouncing back after 2 months after treatment. And that did put me in the mindset of just go through day to day. I'll be done in like a year at the most. I'll be back, I'll be going to uni, everything will be fine. And then obviously gradually learned that I don't produce any hormones, that I've been not producing any testosterone or anything for years and years and years, that I've already got weakened bones, less energy, and then learning that those replacements would, they would help, but not to the extent that I thought they would, or led to have believed. And that was all in the process of about 3-4 years. And then by that point my hair started to grow back properly. I was with friends out a little bit more. I think everyone saw me like day to day when I was out, feeling good. No one sees you when you're inside on your own. The internal struggle, and like that, like resilience. I think when I thought about it beforehand, I wrote loads of notes and they're in a bag upstairs. But I think like I thought a lot about it before, and to be honest, I thought early on, I didn't feel resilient because I was just going day to day. But it's like now I think, I came out as trans just like a couple of years ago to like a couple of people. I've recently gone through sort of fast track referrals, to then be told after being on a waiting list for quite a while still that I couldn't go on a affirming hormones or anything because my risk of re-diagnosis would be incredibly high. It's like, you know, I sorry if I'm rambling a little bit, but like, you know, like my eyes, I had operations to my eyes. Every single day I wake up with all these different reminders, as I'm sure many people here do. And that, when I sat on the train coming here, I thought, that's resilience. Like for me, the fact that I can keep going day after day with all these different reminders, constant put downs from medical sides, my own, you know, feelings that I can't even get up in the morning, but I can still do whatever I can to try and do anything. That yeah, it's sort of, I've totally lost the question. But there's a lot of nodding, so I'm glad that's. So I'm going to end on the laugh.
Well, Matt, I think that is exactly. I mean, resilience is such a difficult, contested term, but I think, you know, everyone that's here who's like got up this morning and got here, and maybe you're feeling not great, maybe you're tired, maybe you know, we all had to do a lot of things to get here, and actually that is the very embodiment of resilience. I think the trouble that we have with cancer is that people think you're resilient if you run the London Marathon. And I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was, but someone in Shine said to me, I never ran a marathon before I had cancer. Why would I run one now? And I thought that's so true. Like, what you don't, no one here has to run a marathon. Encourage other people to do it to raise some money for us. But you know, it's you don't. It's about finding what works for you, and just getting up in the morning, and getting through the day, and trying to find moments of joy in life. I think, are that's what makes you resilient.
Yeah, and Adam, how is that for you to give yourself space? Because I think, you know, often partners can be overlooked. No one's asking you necessarily how you're doing. How have you found kind of going, actually, I need something for me?
Yeah, so, I mean, my kind of safe space that I was using at the time, which wasn't very effective, kind of a bit like you were saying about work. I'm a back-end software engineer, and so my entire work is very much problem solving and building things, and that's great that I can spend days working on things like that. But you don't give yourself time for the emotional space, and then eventually what happens is it kind of builds up and overflows, whether it's because I'm trying to support Lara and she's having a really hard time and it's kind of spilling onto me, and I haven't got any emotional capacity left because I haven't given myself any. I did some counselling. I can't remember the company that it was through. Mind Over Cancer. And that was really, really helpful because it was about going, yeah, you should actually feel your emotions. You shouldn't push them down because that's when they do overflow and spill out.
Yeah, and what did them spilling out look like?
Lara can probably remember better than I can. Lots of arguing, yeah. Yeah, lots of sort of, what's the word? Kind of panicking, I guess. It's just quite overwhelming.
Yeah. And that's something that doesn't get talked about as much, is that it really can come in between our relationships, even with people that, you know, like everyone outside is going, you know, oh, they're there with you, and, you know, but you're driving each other crazy, and you're like grateful at the same time, but you're like, how do I process these arguments? And I think that, yeah, that thing of often that emotion building, but then where does it spill into?
And it's really hard as well, I think, like for people in Adam's position, like you can't tell people, oh, I'm mad at someone with cancer, right? Like you sound like a jerk. You know, oh, they're really driving me crazy, they've got cancer. That's a hard position to be in, and actually we don't really give that a lot of credit because it's tough. You're, like you said, you're dealing with their emotions as well as your own. But everyone expects you to be strong, and that's really difficult. So I think it's great that if you can find a way to let those emotions come out and then process them so you can talk about it, it's really important.
Yeah, and Becca, like, how do you know when you're kind of out of bandwidth or when things are spilling or?
So I knew this question was coming, and I asked my husband about it because I think I lack the like necessary insight to know this myself, and he cowered in fear as he
He's right here.
He's right here, doing his best cowering, and I think he was so kind of terrified to tell me because these are all seen as like negative things. And I think, as kind of is just said, it's like, you don't say that to someone with cancer. Are they not suffering enough? She also can't have a day in bed without it being, oh, you're lacking resilience. You know, whatever you do, it seems to be wrong. But it is things like that. It's when you realize that suddenly there is nothing in your life because you have no capacity for it. I can't unload the dishwasher because... And the reason is sort of nebulous, but it comes back to this kind of feeling overwhelmed or not having capacity or not being robust enough, if you want to give it a kind of moral judgment, which I'd rather not. So it's a difficult, nebulous thing, and it's going to be different for everyone. For me, it is when I look at, what have I done this week? And the answer is nothing. And it's not even, oh, I've recovered from something. It's nothing. You get up or you don't, and you just exist, because like the act of putting one metaphorical foot in front of the other, that's all you can do, is just keep living.
Yeah. And what do you do on days like that is kind of like mentally, like where do you...
So I think the trick to it is actually to do it before you're in that day, right? So it's the run up to the overwhelm that is actually important, because that's when you can start to build good habits and to just recognize what it is that helps. Because I think when you're in that space, oh boy, is it difficult. You don't have the cognitive bandwidth to be able to go, you know what would really help if I just got in the shower, because I've not showered for 3 days. Like we've all been there, and we all know that having a shower kind of helps. But you can't think like that when you are suffocating, when you are like drowning and burning alive, but under the weight of sort of nothing but everything at the same time. So I think the key to it is doing it beforehand. So going, okay, what gives me more from my life? So for me, it's like, having a regular activity scheduled where it's easy. I don't have to think about it. It's like I go to a pottery class now because I'm an old lady. Highly recommend it. Doing something like that where it's like, all I actually have to do is show up. That is really key for me. Having small steps to get there. Hopefully that acts as a kind of preventative measure, but if it doesn't, then ideally it would not stop.
Yeah.
That feeling of spiraling into the depths of nothing, but it can help find a little bit of light, a little bit of perspective.
I love that. And I love how you've articulated how hard it is when you're in that overwhelm, because that's actually, your body doesn't want you to be safe or fix it, because it thinks that you're in danger or there's something about to happen. So it's not going to tell you, go get in the shower. It's going to be like, no, hunker down, stay here and worry, like. So, I mean, I've definitely caught myself doing that. And, all these years as a yoga teacher, massage therapist, relaxation expert, and you see me stressed out, completely contorted, and I have all the skills. My side of the living room has all the blocks, has all the bolsters and everything all there looking at me going, use us. You know how to calm yourself down, but that's part of it, is that actually it's really, really tough in that moment to override everything that millennia of being alive, right, in our bodies have been like, no, don't relax when we're worried. So yeah, thank you for we have a relaxation session this afternoon and we'll get into that some more and chill out. So we've kind of got a few different things emerging. So we've got kind of thinking about things before they get to that point. I love the pottery class idea. Talking, like you found actually having that therapy. Matt, what was something that was useful for you?
I think, because like cancer for me totally changed who I thought I was. I didn't sort of have a sense of identity anymore. And sort of, after years and years, obviously, sort of the one thing I found that really, really helped me was helping people, whether it be like, not so much like physically doing things for people, but sort of like listening to people, talking with people, just like, I show up to, different, like Becca's saying about feeling like an old woman. I feel like a 7-year-old child because I turn up to like Pokemon events just to give cards away to kids. Because it's like, you're helping someone, you're getting them involved in a hobby, meeting new people, have different interests. I think, me and Becca co-run the Yorkshire Network. That's been like invaluable to me. People talk about the Shine Cult. I am well involved. I definitely feel like a fully fledged member. I like that.
Your robes are in the post.
And just I'm training to be a counsellor now. And I think for me, if I'm able to feel like I've had an impact, or at least just like listen to someone, that someone's been able to sort of like, just moan about things to me. So by all means, if you want to moan about things to me, or if you want to just talk about Pokemon, but yeah, for me, it's been incredibly helpful, and it's been able to give me that sort of sense of identity again, which for so many years just left me feeling like a bit of a void, because it felt my life had started again. So yeah, helping people all the way.
And I think so much there is a process. Like, I often think when you get diagnosed with like a critical illness, it sort of strips away so much of who you thought you were, who you thought you were going to be, all of the plans and things that you had for the future. And there is a process of like recalibrating and rebuilding what the future will look like, however long the future is, and it might be much shorter than you anticipated, but you have to kind of figure out, okay, if this is the situation, well, who am I now? What are you left with? And it is kind of like an interesting process. It's not one you would wish on anyone. I used to have this therapist who would tell me, like, you get all this wisdom from this. And I would think, like, I don't want it, thanks. But it is true. I think you do gain a wisdom and an insight into some of the things that are true for you about life. And if you can use those to do things, whether it's take a shower or give away Pokemon cards or just, learn to talk to people in a different way, I think that can be really helpful and build that sense of purpose. Because when you have cancer, I used to just spend a lot of time thinking, like, what does this mean? Like, why? Why did this have to happen to me? And not that you want it to happen to anyone else or you think bad things can't happen to you, but it does take away your sense of purpose, I think. And that's a really tough place to be.
Yeah, and when you were talking, Rena, about kind of that, like how important it is for you having a 5-year-old daughter, that you want things to change. I can really see kind of like the echoes of kind of finding a purpose in the midst of
I
this.
think that's really important. I felt like because I've got cancer, I was a useful person to society, and that was a really big thing for me. So to find purpose in that was really important. That, okay, this has happened to me, what can I do with this? What am I going to do, and what is my purpose now? What's my new identity?
And that comes at the time that it comes, because, there can be so much time of just nothingness and kind of so much boring time where you don't feel like you've necessarily got that impetus, but like even in those kind of kind of thinking of seasonal kind of like, those times where things are latent when they're embedded, but that's often where the little seeds are coming from.
Because I think it's hard because it's different. You know, if you have a moment, if you're just walking around as a muggle, and something happens where you think, right, I'm going to change my life, you've made that choice.
Yeah.
In this case, the choice has been, like, you don't have a choice. Your life has changed, and that's really difficult as well, because I think that makes you feel very powerless. Like, oh, now I have to change my life and figure out who I am, but actually maybe I was happy with who I was before. I didn't want to change. And that's a really difficult thing. So yeah, I think it plants the seeds, but it comes when it comes, and
Yeah.
maybe, you know, actually you just want to get back to who you were.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of that's like okay. So
Yeah.
if you're sitting there kind of thinking like, I don't feel resilient, I don't want to be wise, like, that's totally fine. I don't have any purpose. That's like, you know, that's all kind of, you know, part of this. And it's, yeah, and when it's been foisted upon you, that sense of choice going makes such a difference.
And so the bracelets that everyone's been trading, like we were trying to think of, you know, what are we going to put on these 300 bracelets that we've made? But, you know, one of the ones we said was bouncing back. And I think as younger people, you often hear, like, don't worry, you'll bounce back, right? Everyone hears we're bouncing back. But that's a really tough place to be. Like, bouncing back is exhausting.
It takes so much energy.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't want to do it.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much to all of you for being on the podcast today, and for being on the panel. It's been incredible to hear from all of you. And what I'd love to find out from the audience, I can already see some hands coming together. Would anyone from the audience like to ask one of our panelists a question? If you do, just pop your hand up. We've got somebody right there in the back. So we'll bring a microphone to you, so you don't need to shout across.
Hi, everybody. Firstly, what a bloody great panel. That was brilliant.
Yeah,
it's
let's
really
give
nice.
them a round of
It's so
applause.
good. It's really nice to come to an event where you're talking about cancer and feel uplifted. So thank you all. That was really good. My question is, I've got a bit of a big kind of cancerversary coming up. It's a year tomorrow since my surgery to remove my cancer. So I was just wondering, do you do anything to mark these milestones? And if so, what? And how does that make you feel?
Great question.
Yeah, who would like to answer that?
Mine's been recent.
Oh, okay.
Ish. So we went out for dinner for ours. We went out for dinner for mine. So mine's incurable. So we celebrated the day of diagnosis, which I think that's kind of weird on the face of it. Is like, oh, we're celebrating. But otherwise, well, you can just let it pass as a normal day. And I think that's absolutely fine. That's what we've done in previous years. Then I became aware that this was a thing, and it's like, oh, it's an opportunity to go out drinking. It's going to be amazing. So now we make it like a whole thing, and we get dressed up, and, you know, we go and like take photos, and it's just super cute, and it's nice, I think, to have an opportunity to make the poor wait staff uncomfortable when they say, hey, here to celebrate anything? And you say, yes, my diagnosis of incurable cancer. You just let that sit, and I think that's lovely.
Have you got free stuff? Like, did you get like a free glass of wine, anything?
Nothing.
Ah.
All I got was cancer. Should I get a refund?
Like a piece of cheesecake or something?
yeah.
Something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Next year.
Next year, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it should be, you know, birthdays and cancerversaries.
So they come out, they sing to
Yeah,
you.
oh, yeah.
Cancer Day. You know, that kind of thing.
Happy Cancer Day. I know we had another question. Was that from over here? Yes. So Mark's running over.
Thank you. This is great. It's my first time here, and I'm so glad there is a partner on the panel, because what I've been struggling the most is my husband to open up, right? And when I talked to him about counseling therapy, he kind of shuts down and runs away. So my question to you is, how easy or difficult was for you to start counseling? Do you think that showing, let's say, your vulnerability, you'd make your partner worried? Or is it okay for both of you to share? Because at the end of the day, you still have feelings, right? But I know that we are probably going through things that you might not totally understand. But how are you able to somewhat show your feelings, whatever you're feeling towards your partner without worrying that she's going to be worried about you? I know it's a bit...
So I think particularly in our case, Lara probably worried more when I wasn't showing any feelings. It's way better for her that I do show some feelings in terms of like her gauging where I am with it. As for the counselling, that for me at least, I didn't talk very much to my counsellor about the cancer, bizarrely. It was mostly about sort of various other things in life. But what that gave me was capacity to be able to then deal with my own emotions, and also some tools in terms of how do you then deal with an overflow of emotions. Yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I'm going to keep trying. Persuade him. I'm most hoping to hear this panel, and hopefully it's going to help. But thank you, appreciate
You
it.
can send him the podcast when it'll come out soon. You can,
You recognise my voice anyway. So I knew you were the one asking that question. I knew it. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Any last question? Lara.
Don't worry, Adam, this one isn't going to be about you. So, favourite applications of the cancer card? I love this question.
Anyone?
So definitely for me so far it's well, originally it was because I used the cancer card in a bit of a stand-up routine, so it is great because I had to test it in all different places. So trying to get on the bus for free, that worked. Trying to get free drinks from a local newsagent, that worked. Trying to get a free meal at a cafe, that didn't work. But my favourite one has been with the Yorkshire Network. Wherever we want to book, I'll just immediately send an email to them saying, will you do discounts for us? It's for a group of people with cancer. And then it just sounds horrible if they don't agree to any discounts, which is great. So yeah, for me it's the Yorkshire Network, but do try it anyway, because I was amazed at how many places do just immediately give in when you say you've got cancer.
Wait, are you just getting on the bus and going, I've got cancer?
No.
How is this working?
It's a bit of an extended routine, like you get on, you go, oh, I forgot my pass. And then you've somehow got your disabled blue badge or whatever, some go, oh, I've got cancer. I really need to get to an appointment. Is there any chance I could get on this bus, and they've got, oh, yeah, it's fine, just,
Shuffle along.
Yeah, I've had very grumpy ones that go, no, it's £2. But yeah, it's worth a try.
I've never used it, but I've had some great things happen. So I contacted, I unfortunately was really ill with my treatment, ended up in hospital a lot. I contacted a local hairdresser to say, can you shave my hair, because I can't cope with losing it. But can I wear a mask? Can you wear a mask? And she shut the salon and shaved my hair for free, so that was lovely. And then because I was so poorly, we all had to isolate, so my partner's working from home, and my daughter had to stop going to literally everything. And all she wanted to do was go to a restaurant, because, that's like great for me when I can't go. So I contacted this local cafe type thing and just said, when's your least busiest time? This is my situation. She closed the cafe, and the three of us could go and be in this restaurant and have a meal, so that was really lovely. And the car garage, coming to our house, picking up the car. So, but I've never actually used it, but now I'm thinking.
You got some ideas.
Adam, what about you? As a +1, have you ever used it? Like, my partner's got cancer.
He's watched me use it.
Yeah. I don't think I have used it, actually, to be honest. Not that I can think of, anyway.
All right, well, there's time then. Yeah? Amazing. Tatum, have you used it?
Not well enough.
No, neither have I.
No, I'm loving all these ideas though, and sorry, yours did remind me. I did get a free wax. I was like, she was doing my waxing, and you can imagine where I was getting waxed. And she was like, so what's going on with you? And I was like, well, I'm not going to need to come here for a while. I got cancer, and then it got really awkward. And it's weird when you're kind of spread eagled and someone's up in your business, and then it gets awkward. And then she was like, I don't think I can charge you. And I felt weirdly odd about that. And now I don't. So, yeah.
I get weirdly outraged, like, because running Shine, obviously, you do sort of ask people for discounts and things, and when they come back and say no, I'm like, this is outrageous. But it's got, I've sort of, you think, like, I'm going to cross them off my list, but, like, I've literally crossed everyone off my list. So, yeah, I've had to kind of reel it in a bit, but, yeah.
I'm just imagining, like, the secret list that Kynwyn has of all
like,
the crossed
don't
off.
buy that peanut butter. No. Yeah, I've got a long list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you again to everyone. This has been amazing. I'm going to close the podcast like we normally would.
Yep.
And then I was thinking we could all do a bye all together. Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay, lovely. It's not bye to all of you, though, because this is the beginning of your day. You've got so much going on. But for those who are listening to this at home, so thank you so much to our amazing panelists and guests. We've got Rena, we've got Matt, we've got Adam, we've got Becca, and my co-host for today, Kynwyn. And let's give them a round of applause.